Hi everyone, it's Yamamushi here to welcome you to this special edition of Dual Universe Explorers. I had the opportunity to sit down with JC, the founder of NovaQuark, this weekend at PAX West for a quick interview. Unfortunately, our first recording didn't come out so well, but he was gracious enough to allow us to have a second shot at one. So without further interruption, here's the September 3rd interview with JC for Dual Universe Explorers.
Here we are, back again. Our recording yesterday didn't turn out so well. That was more my fault than anything. And we're going to try this again to interview JC here from NovaQuark, who has been so gracious to sit down with me again and take the time to do this. Thank you, JC.
Hi there. Thank you for having me. I will try to do my best after 2 days of non-stop talking. My voice is almost broken, but let's go. I'm really happy to answer your questions. And as I told you, I listen to all what you guys are doing on the DU Explorer. I really like it. Many times, I wish I could intervene and say something. So that, I guess, that's the moment where I can answer all your questions. So let's go.
Okay, my first question is about cargo containers and space and markets. Whether or not markets, because when you said in another interview, if you bought a spaceship on another market, then maybe on another planet, you might have to go there and it would be waiting for you. And would that mean that markets in general have to have the space to actually hold the things that are being sold on that market?
Yeah, that's the spirit. That's the idea. We would like to have this giant structure happening in the game, like giant space stations and so on. And we thought, if a market can match, the size of the market can match the size of what you sell on it, you have this nice property that a market that does selling a lot of things, in particular large ships, would have to have large hangars to hold those ships. So that's the logic of what we try to do, so that there's a justification for making super big structures. There will be other justification, I suppose, but that's one of those. So markets are going to be realistic. If you want a small market, a small container will do, but if it gets more successful and you have more and more goods to trade, then you would have to manage the growth of your market and organize these things, invest into bigger containers if you want. I think this is a cool idea.
Cool. Yeah, I really like the sound of that. In regards to flying to space, it was said that getting to space for a player, maybe who starts on day one when the game launches, may take weeks or months to get there. And my question is that more about the skills required to get there, or the resources, rare resources?
I think it will be a bit of both, but after some time, the limited factor will be the resources. You need to gather stuffs, you need to craft all the different elements. Many of those elements will require other elements to be crafted prior. Like, for example, if you need an assembler or if you need a 3D printer, you need to do that first, right? So there's a whole level of industrial infrastructure that needs to be there before you can start to build the most advanced things in the game. We have not set precisely exactly how this is going to be organized. We have started prototyping this actually, but we will try to make it so that building your first ship and flying to space feels like a real achievement, something that is rewarding. We don't mind that it will take a bit of time. That will actually generate a lot of quests, if you want, in the game, that you now have to find this rare resource that and you have a goal that is to build this ship. So I think it's okay if it takes a lot of time, as long as everything you have to do along the way is interesting, is fun, is rewarding also. So that's the vision, how we envision. Now, of course, if you join the game after some time and there's already a big industry going on and so on, you can always go in the market and buy your ship. Well, if you have enough money, and maybe you will need to actually do other things before that so that you can get that money. So, it's not like it's going to be instantaneous.
Cool. Thank you. In regards to planets, when the game launches and people go out and they start digging holes in the ground, that may leave scars on the planet, or the starting zone may look not pretty for new people coming into the game. So does NovaQuark have any intentions of regenerating the planet or healing planets?
Okay, that's a very important point. The answer is no. Because we don't want, we want resources to be scarce, so that if somebody finds a source of some rare material that has a lot of value, you might actually get a lot of money out of that before time, and then somebody else can find also a resource later, and money is changing hands because of that somehow. So we like this idea that you don't have a perpetual source of wealth that will come from the fact that your thing is always regenerating. It also gives a lot of incentives for explorers or miners or scanners, people who are going to look for materials. So we plan to gamify this a lot. Now, that being said, the fact that people, once they step out of the arc ship, will want quite legitimately, they will want to try the stuff, we're aware of that. And the thing is, we want to, we think about, it's not clear we are going to do that, but we think about having maybe a sort of simulation within the simulation, which is a playground where you can actually test your tools and try it before you actually go in the real game. So these are certain ideas. Maybe we will regenerate the area just around the arc ship, things like that. So we will see how this turns out, right? And also you have, territory management that will, at some point where we have implemented that, it will allow people to decide who has the right to edit or not edit a certain area of the planet. So that's the set of ideas we have about this issue.
Here we are back with the interview with JC, and the question was about what happens to players when they log out, I believe.
All right, so the thing is there's going to be like when you log out, your character is disappearing with everything that it has in his pockets, but your constructs obviously will not disappear. Otherwise, you will have your larger castles that will suddenly disappear. That doesn't make any sense. So you will have also the possibility to build things into a safe zone, as you know, so it's not like they are going to be into any danger, or you will have ways to protect your things. Possibly if you're part of an organization, people can actually take care of defending your stuff. There will be things like, at some point we will develop things like protection bubbles and things like that, right? Now the other question is also if somebody permanently leaves the game. This is a tricky one. We don't have the answer yet. Along the line of ideas we could develop at some point is, when I say at some point, it means that it doesn't mean it's going to be in the final release. It might be further expansions of the game. I want to make that clear, because we're talking about the vision of the game and how we would handle things. It doesn't mean that we develop all those things for the alpha, the beta, or even the first release. That's a very important point. So people don't get disappointed, for example, if it's not immediately available. So that being said, one thing we could imagine is a sort of a certificate of legacy or something like that says what happens to your stuffs or to your the rights that have been given to you should you not show up after a certain amount of time. And this could be used as a requirements before you get any responsibility or serious job in an organization, for example, that people will request that you make it clear what happens if you don't show up after a certain amount of time. These I think are interesting ideas, but honestly, it's a tricky question. It's a tricky thing. Nobody has had to deal with that thing with that scale, where we have all these huge constructions and so on that are physically there in the world, right? So I think the community will probably come up with ideas also, and as you know, we are listening very carefully to everything you guys are saying. So if you have ideas about that, let's discuss it and let's put them on the table, right?
Okay. This next question is about the camera view and the emphasis between first-person view and third-person view, and how that might work in a ship, like how ship combat might look and how combat in general would look.
Yeah. So the core experience you have is a first-person view. So when you step into a cockpit, you are in the cockpit and so on. However, we have in mind the idea, we plan to have the possibility that you have things like camera drones that will be tied to your control unit, and when you activate it, then your eyes are moved to the camera drone, so you have a third person view of your ship that will enable more tactical type of view on the battlefield. The important thing is that we have to balance the rules of the game so that it will be useful and important to have people, acting in first person, either piloting small ships or actively controlling turrets, for example, in first-person view, as well as tacticians operating at another level. If we can have those two things that cooperate and that complements each other, we have a win. We have something that works, because then you have these two types of games. If we don't put it out properly, one might be much better than the other, and then nobody will use the other type of fighting. So we have to think about that carefully, making sure that everything has a function, right? So these are the ideas we have at the moment. It's not even implemented or anything. So again, let's discuss these things. I think there's room for a lot of cool things to develop.
In regards to combat as well, will we see weapons like swords or flamethrowers or even exotic weapons? Not necessarily nuclear, but just exotic.
Well, I don't think we're gonna have swords, because that's not the backstory. Doesn't fit with that, I think. Also, swords, if you want to do it properly, you need more like a FPS style of accuracy. And as you know, the trade-off we made with the server technology is all about having a lock and fire approach on combat, because we don't have the perfect accuracy, especially for things that are a bit further away, which is fine when you have lock and fire. But if you want to do a proper sword fight, you need the kind of accuracy that we decided we will give up, basically. So I think this is not our focus. This is not the core value of the game. So it will be more like, as I said, lock and fire. We could have automatic lock for things that are close by. And we will have different types of weapons, close range, long range weapons. We will have different types of damages, specializations of weapons, and also protections on the armor and shield side of things. So there will be interesting balances to do, trade-offs to make, with a sort of classical, way of ending this kind of part of the game. So no swords, I'm afraid.
In regards to land and territories, will you be able to rent land or perhaps rooms, or even build something like a arena for people to have combat in your zone?
All right, so renting and all those things, it's an interesting point, because a territory is controlled by a territory unit, which is an asset that as an owner, and like any other asset in the game, it comes with a certain set of what we call powers, so things that you can do with it. And with every power, you can actually decide who has the right to use it, with the rights and duty management system that we have explained in the dev blog. And when this rights and duty management system is fully developed, again, it might not be at release time. We might stage these things, but the idea is that you can give a right to use a certain asset, depending on a certain amount of money that is paid when it is used, or every month, or things like that, which is basically renting, right? And that applies to any asset, including territories. So there's nothing special about territories. They fall under the control of the RDNS, and we try to unify all those things, so that you have only one system to understand, and then you can apply it to many situations. About the arena to fight, why not? You can make a construct that is dedicated to that, and you can have people fighting in it. I guess that's completely possible. Lots of ideas are, you could condition the fact that you can enter this construct to the fact that you pay a certain amount, so like a ticket. I have no idea. I don't know. Maybe we could do that. It could be fun. I don't know.
In regards to the infrastructure that you guys use, does NovaCorp have a giant data center filled with computers, or are you guys renting from like a cloud provider, or what are the plans for that?
Well, definitely we're not have any plan to have our own data center. It's not the right thing to do. We're gonna use existing cloud technologies for providers. We have not decided yet what provider, so but it's gonna be this way. No way. The data center is extremely expensive. We may come to that in a few years, if that makes sense. But no, we're gonna rent stuff, and there are a lot of different offers on the market that offers different properties. Depending on how much you want fast interconnections with your computers inside the cluster. We're gonna build. In effect, we are going to build a kind of supercomputer, right? So we're gonna look at the different offers, and we're not gonna build it ourselves to start with. That's for sure.
Cool. Let's see. Are there plans for textures? Like, I know that we saw painting in the latest video that was released, but are there plans for maybe bump map textures to make it look like a rough surface, even?
Yeah, that could be possible. That you select a material that you will apply of a certain area to change the reflection. The material properties. As you know, we are using rendering techniques that allow these kind of things, and so we could get these kind of things. Yes. We're thinking about also allowing organizations to have a logo that they can put on, at some place on the ships, for example. The way it's going to be done is not completely set, but that's the idea. And it would be really cool that you can display your personal logo on your ship. So this we could do probably, yes.
Okay. Is there a chance that we'll find a system with binary stars?
It's unlikely, but it's definitely not the priority, because the stars are kind of real. So, and the way they project light also is real. So this is an extra work for us to deal with this issue of having dual shadows and things like that. So no, not in the short term. We'll keep it simple.
Okay. And my final question here is going to be about the inventory system. Is there a limit to how much people can carry? And what does the inventory system kind of look like? Or what are the plans for that?
Well, there will be a limit to how much you can carry, yes. But you have this insane technology called the nanopack that allows you to transport huge amount of things, like huge amounts of rocks or copper or whatever. That would not make sense, considering the weight that this represents. So let's say the nanoformer is compressing volume and weight. That allows you to carry a lot of things. We have in mind, builders, and we don't want people to have to come and go to a container to refill their pockets all the time. So we want to make it possible to transport a fair amount of things, but not unlimited. So there's room for upgrades and a way to improve that with the skills and all sorts of ways. But it will not be unlimited, but it will be comfortable. It's not like it's going to be a pain all the time. Especially if you're not into mining, you should be fine with your inventory, right?
Okay. Well, thank you. That was my last question. Thank you for sitting down again with me today and taking the time to do this. Yeah, thank you.
Well, thank you for having me. And again, we're all about exchanging with the community, discussing ideas. I want to draw the line again between what's going to be in the final release, the first release, probably at the end of 2018, and what we're discussing freely like that, right? We don't want to go into feature creep or people expecting too much things. This is very important to stress. But at the same time, we want to talk about the vision of the game, where it could go. And then we select, what gets into the first iteration. But since it's an MMO and there are all these ideas about expansion that will come, perhaps every 6 months or so, the idea is that features that do not make it for the first release will be staged for further expansions. And as time goes on, we want to get closer and closer to the full vision that we're discussing, right? So we're going to try to have the set of features that make sense so that we have a fun game that exhibits the core ideas about the emergent gameplay. But it might not have everything we're talking about right now, right? I want to be very clear on that. So thank you very much, and let's meet again, on forums and community platforms. I'll be happy to answer questions. We listen to everything you do, guys, and we read everything you write. So thank you very much.
Well, that about covers it for the interview. I'll be linking a copy of the original first interview we did with JC in the description below. It's of poor quality, but I feel it should be shared for archival purposes nonetheless. I hope everyone has a great day, and please do subscribe for the latest updates about Dual Universe.